Hi, I'm Feby Oliva Irdani from the Information System Class 2024E. With my study identification number ending in 157, on this valuable occasion, I will present an expert review of a fundamental paper in the field of risk science titled Risk Assessment and Risk Management, Review of Recent Advances on Their Foundation by Terje Aven, published in 2016. This presentation is prepared in depth as part of my midterm exam for the Information System Security course, where we will dissect how the evolution of this risk theory has become crucial for the protection of our digital asset today. Before we delve into the core discussion, it is vital to understand that Terje Aven's paper does not stand alone. Aven built his arguments upon the foundation of previous giants. He synthesizes the thought of Knight, 1921, who first distinguished between measurable risk and deep uncertainty, as well as Kaplan and Garrick, 1981, who laid the groundwork for the quantitative risk triplet. Furthermore, Aven integrates Nazem Nicholas Telf's 2007 Black Swan theory to explain how we must handle rare events that have catastrophic impacts but are often missed by traditional assessment. The main discussion in this journal is a paradigm shift from traditional risk definition. Aven criticizes our reliance on pure probability formulas P times D. Instead, he introduced the C, Q, and K triplet concept. Here is a combination of consequences. C, the measure uncertainty, Q, and most importantly, background knowledge, K. Aven emphasizes that the quality of risk assessment heavily depends on the strength of our knowledge. If our background knowledge is weak, the resulting probability figures can be highly misleading. Now, let me offer a deeper, more critical perspective on this CQK framework, because as powerful as that it is, it also carries important limitations that we must acknowledge. First, let us talk about the key. Background knowledge even argues that key is the most decisive element in determining the validity of a risk number. And I personally believe this is the most brilliant yet must underestimate contribution of this paper. Think about it this way: two risk analysts can look at the exact same cyber threat data and arrive at completely different probability estimates, simply because their background knowledge differs. One analyst has deep experience with zero-day exploit, the other does not. Their Q, their uncertainty measure, will be the same number on paper, but their key is radically different. This is exactly why Aven argues we should never report a probability figure alone. We must always accompany it with a transparent declaration of the strength of knowledge behind it. However, I must raise a critical caution here. Aven introduced the concept of strength of knowledge, or SOK, but the paper does not provide a standardized operational metric for measuring SOK in practice. How do we, as information security practitioners, personally quantify whether our background knowledge is strong, moderate, or weak? Aven acknowledged this challenge, but leaves much of the operationalization, the future research. This is a significant gap, because in the real world of cybersecurity, where decisions must often be made under extreme time pressure, the absence of a clear SOK measurement tools can make the CQK framework difficult to apply systematically. And furthermore, the triplet framework was largely developed in the context of industrial safety and offshore oil platforms, environment where physically phenomena are more predictable. When we translate this to information system security, we face a fundamentally different challenge: adversarial intent. Unlike a pipeline failure, a cyber attack is not a random event driven by physics. It is driven by a human adversary who actively adapt to our defense. This means or C, in cyberspace are not static, that evolve dynamically based on what the attacker learned about our system. This adversarial dimension is something the original CQK framework does not fully account for, and this is a limitation that more recent research, such as the cybersecurity risk framework proposed by Terje and Aven in 2023, has begun to address. This journal also thoroughly examines three pillars of risk management strategy. First is the risk-informed strategy, which uses technical data for non-pattern. However, to face deep uncertainty or black swan event, Aven advocates for the cautionary or precautionary strategy. In the world of information system security, this means we must not only rely on attack prediction but also build resilience and robustness. The goal is for our system to be able to survive and recover quickly even when previously undetected attack occur. Let me now critically examine these three management strategies because understanding their strength and tension is essential for applying them in our field of information system cybersecurity. The risk-informed strategy is powerful and works exceptionally well when we have rich historical data. For example, when we know the statistical frequency of SQL injection attack, phishing campaign, or DDoS ascendant from past record. In this case, probability estimates are grounded in solid evidence, and the strategy can guide research allocation effectively. But here is the critical tension: this strategy is inherently backward-looking. It optimizes our defense for the threat we have already seen, for what Taleb called mediocre stand. Is it fundamentally weak against novel, previously unseen attack where AI-powered attack and zero-day vulnerabilities emerge constantly? Relying solely on risk-informed strategy is simply not enough. This is precisely where Aven second strategy, the precautionary or cautionary strategy, becomes critically important. Aven argues that when consequences could be severe and scientific knowledge in deeply uncertain, we must act before we have full proof of the threat. In cybersecurity terms, this translates directly to the zero trust architecture principle: never trust, always verify regardless of whether a threat has been confirmed. The precautionary approach also demands with often calls robustness, designing a system that maintain function even under failure conditions. Think of multi-factor authentication, network segmentation, and entry backups. There are not reactive measures that are precautionary investment against consequences we cannot yet fully predict. However, I want to raise a critical observation. Aven himself acknowledged that the precautionary principle has historically been one of the most controversial principles in risk management. Why? Because it can easily lead to overprotection and excessive restriction, particularly when there is no clear threshold for how uncertain enough to trigger precautionary action without operational threshold. The precautionary approach risks may becoming an excuse for paralysis rather than a tool for intelligent actions. The third strategy, the discursive approach, emphasizes deliberation, transparency, and multi-stakeholder communication and information system security. This maps to the concept incident response communication plan and risk governance framework. But again, I find a gap. In fast-moving cyber incident, there is often no time for extensive deliberation. The 2070 WannaCry ransomware attack spread to over 150 countries within hours. Is a situation where the discursive strategy alone would have been catastrophically insufficient. This brings me to a critical finding of my review. The three strategies Aven describes are not alternatives, They must be applied simultaneously and adaptively. For known threats, use risk-informed analysis for emerging and unknown threats, invoke the precautionary principle proactively, and for governance, stakeholder trust, and policy development, apply the discursive approach. A layered, integrated application of all three be is what modern information security frameworks, such as NIST cybersecurity framework, already implicitly embody. Personally, I see Aven thinking regarding the strength of knowledge as highly relevant to today's cyber threats. We must adopt Aven precautionary principle by implementing zero trust architecture and layered defense. In conclusion, the sturdy Aven successfully shifted the focus of resilience from mere numerical prediction to understanding uncertainty. That concludes my review. Thank you for your attention.